Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jackie and I am the owner and creator here at Denwood Designs. In today's video, I am going to show you how to create a really versatile look using a 14-ounce wine goblet and creating a look that really works well for spring, summer, Mother's Day, graduation, weddings. And we're going to keep it classic in a navy and white palette, and we're going to be using some textured vinyl, glitter of course, as well as some gold leaf and a printable vinyl. So everything that I will be using today will be linked down in the description box below. And if you have any questions, please drop those below. Hope you love the video, guys. Thanks so much. And without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so as always, I am starting with a sanded and prepped cup that I did myself. So this is a 14-ounce wine tumbler from DAP Merchandise. And I had marked off little lines there, as you could see, about 1 inch apart from the top. And I drew my first line just for reference, so you guys could kind of see what I was doing here. So about every inch I made a little dot, and then I have this little fancy tool that we 3D printed here, and it just allows me to line up a marker so that I can accurately just go all the way around the cup. So some of you may have a little gadget like this. You can also just stack a couple of containers. I have seen it done with Lego pieces, and there's no right or wrong way. You just basically need to be able to have a steady surface that you can set your pencil down on and then rotate your cup. That's the only thing that should move, is the cup itself. And then it goes ahead and makes all these lines for you. So it's perfect. Takes all the guesswork right out of it, and you get perfectly even lines all the way around. So it doesn't take much time at all. I love this little tool, and I'll drop a link in the bottom of where we printed it from for those of you with 3D printers. So now that that's done, we're going to go ahead and find the center of our cup kind of through the middle of the fattest part of the body, essentially. So I'm just going to line up the fabric measuring tape that I use. Just a flexible tape is kind of what you're going to want. And I can see that it's, I can't remember offhand, I think I want to say it was around 11.5 inches, maybe, something like that. So then I'm going to find my half of that. Yeah, there we go. So I think I went 6.5. So it was about 12.5 all the way around. And then I made a mark at each end. So what we're going to do is we're going to tape it off on a bit of an angle, and then one side is going to be our lines and the other side we're going to keep blank. So I taped off the first one, and now we're going to go ahead and place that second piece of tape, and this should make sense in just a second. So I'm marking the tape so that the excess amount of tape is to the outside of the dots, not towards the center, if that makes sense. And then you want to make sure that you get those creases out, especially along the bottom here. You really want a nice flush contact with the cup as much as possible. And then I just folded my little tabs kind of off to the inside there. And then we're just going to redo this top one because it's a little bit wrinkly as well. And so this back part that you're looking at is actually going to remain solid. So there's a number of ways that you guys could have done this too. Like you could just tape off all of this ahead of time, and you could have gone ahead and spray painted your lines. This is just a way that I found was easy for me, and I didn't mind doing it. So it's just another way to do it. More than one way to skin a cat, as they say. So there's where our lines are going to go, and then the remainder is going to stay the solid color that we've chose. So once that's all smoothed down and we're happy with it, we're going to go ahead and use, I think it's 1 inch masking tape. It might be 3/4. But basically it worked out to pretty much exact with my lines where I needed it. So I taped off every second line, and the reason I did that is because you're going to start with one color and do all that color first. And ideally you want to start with your darkest color of glitter first. And that way you're not running into contamination problems. So if you're doing a light color glitter and then you go ahead and do your dark, the chances of you getting a whole whack of dark mixed into that white is huge, and it is such a pain to try to deal with. It basically just ruins your design. It doesn't make it clean at all. So this is just my preferred way here. And I knew I wanted to start with blue and end with blue, so I needed an odd number of stripes, so there's 5, and I needed to start with dark on the top and finish with dark on the bottom. And that's just the look I chose. That doesn't mean that's what you need to do, it's just kind of how I chose to do it. So this one you don't need to worry about too much about the lines being wrinkly, and you're going to get that because it's a curved surface, so that's not a big deal, but you definitely want to follow those lines. So I'm using M&Cat glitter today, and I'm using Hello Sailor in the navy blue and Diamond Dust, which is a kind of a silvery white. And then I'm using a acrylic paint here from Artist Loft. I think that's Phthalo Blue. And we're just going to put a little bit of that into a medicine cup along with some Mod Podge from my bottle here. And we're going to mix that up, and this is just to provide a little bit better coverage than on a white cup. And again, you could spray paint if that's better for you. If you hate using Mod Podge, you could do this in a couple of different ways. You could go ahead and spray paint and then go ahead and put your glitter down using Mod Podge, or you could also use the epoxy method, but you would need to let it dry, seal it, and then cover it to do your light. You wouldn't do it all in one step either. So I felt like this was just a lot quicker than waiting for epoxy to dry for 12 hours. So I could just work with an angle brush. It's my preference. It's a 3/4 inch angle brush, and I apply it pretty liberally here, and I try not to go too wild with onto the tape, but it's not a big deal if you get some on the tape. Just know that your glitter will stick to that. So just want to try to get really good coverage here, and then go ahead, and this is a fine cut of glitter, and I just love this royal blue. I think this is such a classic look, you guys, and it could be so versatile. Mother's Day, graduations, birthdays, grandmothers, all of it. Like, this is just such a beautiful, beautiful look. So we're going to go ahead and paint all of these lines with the blue and then put the glitter on the top. And one of the things I found that really helped, and you'll get to see this a little bit later on, is kind of putting that glitter on so that it mounds a little bit on the top. And then you're going to use a finger and just tap it into the adhesive. And I found that when I did that, I very rarely had to go and do a second full coat. There may have been a little bit of areas where they were sparse, but you can touch those up versus having to do a second whole coat on everything. So hard to see on here, but I definitely did have to go and do a second coat, and I did do that off camera. So I just waited till it was dried and then went in and did a second coat. And when you're getting down to the bottom here, like I said, the bottom was important to me that I had this navy blue as well. It just tied into the cup so much better. But don't worry about the bottom. It is going to get covered with the same color. I just didn't do it right here, but I wasn't too worried about any that did get onto the bottom. So if you are doing a different color from your last stripe to the bottom of your cup, you'll want to be really careful there. And then just tap everything off. I went and got a really loose fluffy brush and just kind of brushed everything off as well. And then you can go ahead and peel the thinner stripes off, and then you're going to go ahead and do the white. I didn't seal in between, but you certainly can. My camera had a little bit of a malfunction, so you didn't get to see me doing the Diamond Dust stripes, but essentially that's all I did was just peeled up the tape, and I just applied Mod Podge right from the bottle, and I actually didn't color it or anything because it is white. So then brushed off any excess, as you could see, and then touch up any of the kind of more sparse color areas there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and peel that tape off, and we're going to finish coloring in the rest, or glittering in the remainder of the cup here. So if my footballs don't fit all the way into my cups here, so I kind of had to be really careful and just pull the football out so that I could get all my tape off here. And then I put it back in really, really carefully. So just bear with me through this part here. It was a little bit awkward, but it all worked out just fine. You don't need that tape anymore, so you can go ahead and just toss it. And from here, it's really easy to just follow the lines that you had already previously made from your stripes. So you don't need to mask anything else off from here. And I did seal in between this step as well. So once the white was on, once it was dried, after about 2 hours, I went and gave it a quick spray with Rust-Oleum 2 times clear. And then I started this process here of adding in the glitter to the back of the cup. And that allowed me to use that fluffy brush you just saw there to make sure that I'm not getting any contamination into that lighter colored area of the stripes. So we're just going to go ahead and finish filling in the back of the cup, being really, really careful applying paint with the Mod Podge in it. And I'll show you here in this part, this is where I had mentioned about doing the filling in where you mound your glitter a little bit and then tap it down. I'll show you here. So this back part, I didn't have to do an entire second coat. I just had a couple of spots that needed a little tiny bit of extra adhesive, and I just went ahead and applied it and then tapped it in. And as long as you work fairly quickly, you should be able to get it done in like 2 chunks, just like I had done there. But if you feel like your studio space is a little bit too warm, or your Mod Podge is drying a little bit too quick, you can do it in smaller sections. That's not an issue. So there we go. I just tapped on a little bit extra so that I could tap it in a bit more. And that really, really helps, guys, when it comes to not having to do whole entire second coats, because that's a pain. I'm all about doing it as easy as I can, but it's got to look right too. So so from here, I'm just quickly looking over to see if I have any sparse areas. I think there was just a couple of really, really little ones, and a little spot on the bottom that I needed to do as well. And I was really, really happy with this. So it took no time at all. Just fixed up a couple of little spots, and then we were ready for our first coat of epoxy. And this, I didn't wait for it to dry. It literally didn't make a lick of difference for me. I know some people prefer to wait fully, but for me, the glitter didn't really move all that much. So this was just a bit more, just to boost, I guess, a little bit more, making sure that we've got the coverage in there. And then tap it down just to blend it a bit more. There we go. So not really any contamination, and great coverage all the way around. And we'll just finish up the bottom by making sure that the rim is properly covered, that there's no sparse areas there. So just tap it down and you should be good to go. And I mixed up about 20 milliliters of epoxy for the first coat on this. I did want it to be fairly liberal, because if you are doing raw glitter like this, and especially a finer cut, this will really just soak up your epoxy. It's just almost like a cactus. It just slurps it right up and takes so much. So a really nice thick coat goes a long way, so that you're not you know, having to do 3 or 4 smaller coats before you're ready to go on to the next step here. So for this part, I was able to do 1 coat, a fairly thick coat, and then I was able to move into my second step. If you find after this coat that your glitter is still kind of poking through in spots, please go ahead and just do a second coat, or if you're not comfortable and you think you're going to have to anyway, by all means do a flood coat in whatever your recoat time is for the epoxy you're using, and then go ahead and sand, because you don't want to sand off any of the glitter at all. So I just made sure I had really good coverage from top to bottom, really watching that top lip so that it's not being pulled back, and I've got epoxy all the way up to the top rim, and then really watching that bottom rim as well, and making sure that I've got really good coverage and no bare spots. And again, I'm using Alumilite, and I absolutely love it. So my recoat window is about 4 to 6 hours at a moderate room temperature in my studio. So if you're using the same product, like I said, by all means, after 4 to 6 hours, go ahead and do a second coat if you feel that you're going to need it before going on. Now we're just going to give it a quick torch to get out any of the micro bubbles. And we're going to let that spin for the full 12 hours. And then we'll come back for the second part. So for the second part, you can see that I have sanded. Any little lumpy bumps are taken down, and we really want to make sure around where the stripes are going to be going is nice and smooth, and the bottom as well. And then I've got some textured adhesive vinyl in gold metallic from Sam Lamb's West Coast Vinyl, and some gold leaf. I can't remember where I got this. It might be a Michael's thing or a dollar store even, and some tack kit, and a small soft bristled brush as well. I think that one might be a 1/4 inch, somewhere in around there. So these stripes are going to go in between each color, and I did them at 0.15 by 8 inches, and I just cut those out on my Cricut. And I extended the line just past where I need to, and I'll show you where I'm going to trim it here. And you're going to pull it nice and snug and follow your line. And doing so, you should ensure that your vinyl goes on pretty straight. And then you're just going to take a craft knife or X-Acto blade, whatever you've got, and you're going to follow that angle of where we had taped off and make a cut and remove the excess vinyl. And you're going to do that from both sides. So go ahead and discard that off to the side, and then we're going to go ahead and do the other side as well. And then we're going to finish applying the remainder of the gold stripes first. So I just carefully peel up. You don't want to dig into your epoxy, so just be really, really careful that way. And then we're going to go ahead and apply the remainder of the, I think it's 3 more strips that we did on here in the same manner. So putting them on, cut off the edges, and then we're good to go. So now we're going to take our tacket, and I just squeezed out a really thin line down that side. And this you don't want to be perfect, or at least I didn't. That wasn't the look I was going for. I do want something that looks a little bit more on the vintage side, so a little bit distressed, but because we're using gold flake, it really comes out as this really classy finish to this cup, and I feel like this just really ties in so nice with those gold stripes. So we're just going over the same line, thinning it all out really, really nice. Tacket dries clear, goes on like an Elmer's school glue type thing. You can see it, it's white, and as long as you can see it, it is wet. And so we want it to dry, and it dries clear. So I went ahead a little bit early here just to show you. I didn't let it fully dry, which isn't a big deal. And then I laid bigger pieces of the gold leaf down and just cover that whole area that we applied the tacket to. And we want really good coverage from top to bottom. Fill in every little space. So there's a little bit of a gap there at the bottom. I'm just going to finish that up. And if you've never worked with gold leaf before, it gets everywhere. It's very, very delicate, so try to handle it very minimally and very carefully. I like to use tweezers, that works for me. So once it's on there, we're going to burnish it. And we've got it butted up right to the lines, right over to the vinyl that we placed, our vinyl stripes. And it covers it up just ever so slightly, so it ties it all in so beautifully, but not so much that you see the lines of your vinyl underneath the gold leaf. So we're going to go ahead and do the other side as well. And this one, I did not wait for it to dry, which just makes it a little bit more of a challenge. I'm kind of used to dealing with it that way. It does stick, so if you're looking for a slightly easier way, be patient and just let your tacket dry. And then that's it right there. So next up is to use some, I'm using CCDIY's Quick Coat, and I've just put it into a little squeezy bottle. It's a lot easier for me to handle this way. And using a silicone brush, and I just apply a really thin layer. So this just keeps that vinyl from lifting in any way. And it also does a really nice coat over top of that gold leaf. I find sometimes gold leaf can be bad for repelling epoxy, and it also can have like edges that will lift up. So this just keeps everything nice and tucked down to the cup, nice and flat, and really helps give you a beautiful gloss finish on your final coats of epoxy. So I did do the whole cup. It was just easier to do the whole thing. And then I went ahead and mixed up another 15 milliliters of epoxy and applied this as our first coat over the top of all of this. I waited till that quick coat was dry, so I'll give that about half an hour, 45 minutes, and you can put a fan on if you need to. It'll just depend on the temperature of your workspace. So half an hour to 45 minutes is usually more than enough for mine. And then go ahead and put your epoxy on. And again, I did 2 coats here. So this is the first coat, and then I went back 4 to 6 hours after and did a second coat, and that's per the manufacturer of the epoxy I use, which is Alumilite Amazing Clear Cast. And zap out any bubbles here with the torch as well. Make sure that we've got really good coverage from top to bottom, and that we're really happy with everything, and that none of that gold leaf is shifting to places we don't want it, and that it's all nicely burnished onto the cup. So once that second coat went on, I did let it turn for the remainder of the night, and then the following day I came at it with my decals that I wanted to use. So here we are, the 2 coats are on. And I've got my decals printed, and I'm just using printable vinyl and this really cute bouquet of sunflowers. And I thought those would be just the perfect little accents for on this cup. So I went ahead and printed those out and had them cut out on the Cricut as well. And you do not need to seal printable vinyl. And this was printed with an inkjet, so not with a laser. And I did not need to seal this at all. And I don't tend to seal my printable vinyl ever. I don't know what would happen if you did, if it's nothing. I just know that I have not needed to do it, and I've never experimented with doing it. So as far as placement goes on here, I did want it to be offset of each other. So I did one kind of higher up on one side of the gold leaf stripe, and then the other one was kind of opposing that on the opposite side on a lower angle. And so a couple of little smaller spots that were a little bit problematic for weeding, so I just decided to weed them on the cup. That's definitely an easier way to go for me. And that was pretty much it for this. Some areas were really hard to see. But once we got everything off and we were happy, I was happy to go and basically just do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to put it on the opposite side, but just slightly lower. And do the exact same process. So just weeding out those little tiny bits while they're on the cup. It's a lot easier than doing it on the paper. And there we have it. So I've mixed up, this would be another 15 milliliters of epoxy. I have more in my cup here because I had some other projects on the go. But we're going to basically do the exact same thing as our previous 2 coats of epoxy. So really make sure that you're getting up to that upper lip. And something that I didn't show that I've done on here as well, I apologize, is I have sanded that rim down so that there's a little bit of stainless steel exposed along that top rim. It's very small, but it's where you want to be able to get that really good seal from your epoxy to your cup instead of it being at the top rim. So that's really important, and I have shown that in other videos of mine, but I will make sure I capture that again in the next video that I do. So again, just making sure that we get the cup from top to bottom, and in my recoat window again, 4 to 6 hours, I'm going to go ahead and do a flood coat with another 15 milliliters and then torch all the bubbles and let that spin for a full 12 hours. And that's it, you guys. So it was a really easy cup to do. I think this is just so beautiful and versatile. It gives you space to personalize. It gives you space if you wanted to add a quote. These are great for ready to ship for those of you who are doing markets. And I really hope you loved it. So thanks so much, guys.